My name is Mark Dixon, and I'm doing the tech facilitation for today's event. And I just want to let everybody know that this event is being recorded and live streamed. In fact, it is being recorded. Now we are recording. And I will be enabling the transcript here. So you should be able to access the live transcript through your Zoom settings, often found with a ... in the upper right-hand corner of your screen or on the control bar for Zoom. It would be helpful. People are connecting in through a variety of ways. It'd be helpful for the speakers and during the live, community discussion at the very end, the open discussion, if you say your name when you speak so that everybody knows who you are. Once again, my name is Mark Dixon. I'm the tech facilitator for this event, and we're so happy to have you here. And we're going to start with our video that we have shared at several previous town halls that gets you into the mood for addressing our region's air pollution. This is the Communities on Fire in Southwestern Pennsylvania.
The current levels of pollution that we're all breathing are unacceptable, and we can't tolerate it more because it's killing us.
We deserve clean air now. We deserved it yesterday. Our children deserve it.
This is a paper towel off a screen from my bedroom window that I clean every week. I clean this crap off my window.
The Clairton Coke Works is one of the most toxic industrial facilities in Allegheny County.
I never missed a day running in New York City because the air smelled or because I felt like I had a breathing issue. In Pittsburgh, I've missed too many days to count.
The most livable city in America isn't livable if the air isn't breathable.
So welcome to the fire. Because we've been putting up with U.S. Steel's poor environmental record for 150 years now. My mother, who passed away last year from COPD, she never smoked a cigarette in her life, but we live right here next to U.S. Steel.
Everybody in my family's been ridden with cancer. My brother just died of cancer.
Approximately 130,000 people live within a 5-mile radius of the Coke Works. People in this area have air that's worse than 91% of the entire country.
The children are being sickened. They're developing asthma at a very early age.
I am also the mother of 2, and I fear for my children's and my family's health.
I have a 5-month-old daughter who I'm scared to raise here in the city.
A year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with chronic bronchitis that is likely due to the poor air quality in Pittsburgh.
And I can't understand how there's not enough compassion to put a stop to this.
So welcome to the fire.
If you understand that your child's asthma is approximately the result of Norfolk Southern or is going to be exacerbated by it, then you're going to come to a meeting and raise your voice.
Where petrochemical development occurs, people tend to suffer.
This area has so much more to offer than becoming a cancer alley.
We've got our work cut out for us.
The county health department is in charge of enforcing our Clean Air Act and protecting our health. Do you think they're doing a good job? No!
This anger, anxiety, and frustration are the results of residents enduring decades worth of air pollution and violations.
It's on us to be bold, and it's also on us to listen to the needs of the people who are here. They are suffering.
Welcome to the fire. 'Cause the bigger they are, the harder they fall. You build your fortress and I'll climb your walls. You got your armor, but I see your flaws. So welcome to the fire.
We are starting to elect politicians who pay attention and fight hard for clean air. And if you do not fight hard for clean air, we're done with you.
We have to hold accountable those who are harming our communities.
For decades, we have not been able to breathe.
There is a legal and moral obligation to make the county act.
What do we want? Clean air!
Because cancer should not be the cost of breathing in America's most livable city.
Enough is enough.
Super. I would like to now welcome Howard Rieger.
Thank you. I'm Howard Rieger. I'm the convener of Southwestern Pennsylvania resident-led town halls. And I want to welcome you to our 5th town hall in a series that has been addressing the problem of air pollution in the Pittsburgh region for the last year. The objective of these events is to coalesce a group of residents who want to see a vision for our future that makes this one of the healthiest places to live in the country, rather than one of the worst 1% for cancers caused by air pollution, and one with a youth asthma rate near major sources of pollution that's nearly triple the national average. On December 20, 2021, Public Source featured an interview with Rachel Filippini, about to retire CEO of GASP, the group against smog and pollution. And in response to a question about whether Allegheny County could do more to combat air pollution, she said the following: I think County Executive Rich Fitzgerald could do more for sure. He is the top official in Allegheny County. And if he really wanted there to be significant air quality improvements, if he made that a priority and came out and said very forcefully that air quality and public health are intertwined, and improving the air quality is going to be good for the health of Allegheny County residents, and he meant it, that would flow down to all of the agencies in which he's in charge. By the way, that includes the Allegheny County Health Department. Fitzgerald's response, which extolled the virtues of a county that met quality standards for the first time only because we had a pandemic that basically shut down our workforce, also revealed his true colors when he said, we also understand that for the activists, these actions and substantial progress will never be enough. If there aren't complaints and issues raised by those extremists, then they are less able to raise funds to continue their operations. Well, nice touch for someone paid by us, the citizens of Allegheny County, and somebody who only had to raise money if he chose to run for election. And that brings us to a report just released today by the Health Effects Institute, an independent nonprofit research institute funded jointly by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and sponsored by virtually every auto industry, Caterpillar, Cummins, John Deere, ExxonMobil, and others, a report that has determined that even meeting the current air quality standards leads to thousands of deaths a year, including 23,000 for seniors alone. In Allegheny County, we exceed those standards far too often, frequently landing us in the top 10 worst places in the country, sometimes right at number 1, the worst place. Our objective today is to focus on science, community science, that reveals the depth of our problem right here in Allegheny County. Science that our county executive and his health department would do well to recognize and utilize to upgrade their operations. The question that will be left for all of us today is how these tools could be used to make an even bigger impact for change, and what we might do to make sure that happens. I now have the privilege of introducing you to the team from the Community Robotics Education and Technology Empowerment Lab, short-term CreateLab at Carnegie Mellon University, an extraordinary asset located right here in Allegheny County. in Pittsburgh. In their own words, CreateLab is a community partner, empowering residents to be agents of change, giving us the evidence to be able to drive our advocacy, not extremism, just facing the truth in a transparent fashion, something we wish our county would emulate. The question that we'll be left with today is how to push for these tools to be used to make an even bigger impact for change. One way would be to never give up imploring those in positions of power to once and for all address the dangers that we face, dangers that degrade our quality of life and threaten our health. We look forward to giving you and others the vehicles to make that happen. Following CreateLab's presentation, we'll have a brief face-off video comparing the ease of using CreateLab's SmellPittsburgh app versus the county's GovAQ email platform to lodge odor complaints, and a brief presentation from one voice in Hazelwood, Andrea Coleman Betts, a resident of that community, who will speak to air quality in her town. Then we'll have a brief highlights video from past town halls in order to tee it up for you to engage in an open discussion. At that point, we will also have in the chat a link to a brief survey in case you have ideas for community future town halls that might focus on your community. Now, jump in, CreateLab.
I think we were looking for Randy.
Okay,
there we go.
I'm sharing. Is this working?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Randy Sargent. I'm grateful to be invited here today with my colleagues at Carnegie Mellon's CreateLab, where we partner with numerous community organizations and residents, many of whom are here today. In the context of air quality, we try to work with residents to publicly document pollution that damages all of our health. We try and do right by residents who come to us with concerns about exposure to some of our large industrial emitters, and who often tell us they don't believe they're being well heard by the industrial point source emitters or the regulators who are tasked with ensuring industry's compliance with both the Clean Air Act, as well as our Commonwealth's Constitution-given rights to clean air and pure water for the benefit of all people. I want to talk about the work of a dedicated group of residents who formed Allegheny County Clean Air Now, some of whom will be here today. Back when Shenango Cokeworks was in operation at Metal Island, residents from ACAM came to us asking questions like whether it was safe for their kids to go outside given all the pollution they could smell. They would tell stories about trying to get response from both industry and county regulators. One resident told me the story of reporting a bad episode and the representative of the health department telling her that there was no industrial emission at that time and that she was probably smelling someone close by repairing a roof. The resident expressed such frustration to me about the lack of trust and the lack of response. She had lived in the area for 20 years and knew full well what she was smelling. And I bet she was more expert about the smells than the people at the health department were in her neighborhood. We worked together with ACAM to set up cameras and pollution monitors and start reporting smells when they happened. Here's one of the pollution events from Shenango that the ACAM camera caught. We had cameras running 24/7 and they caught many thousands of pollution events. Here are some examples. Smell turned out to be a critical tool for understanding when pollution was at its worst. When we started, residents had to go to a computer and find a website and fill out a form and type in what time it was, type in the location where they were at and everything else. And it took a long time and it was quite a barrier. Residents asked us if they could report smell reports from their phone while they were outdoors. So we worked out a way to do that. We also learned that putting reports up immediately on a map was critically important because in that way, residents were able to see right away if someone else was reporting the same thing. We got pushback on the reports. Were the smells really representing harmful levels of pollution? So we worked with residents to start capturing air samples using SEMA devices like this one and sending them to a lab for further analysis. We found that at times of high smell, pollutants like benzene were at 10 times their average level. We have much stronger evidence now that what came from Shenango was quite harmful to health. And the evidence came from when Shenango stopped operation in 2016. We saw benzene in the neighborhood drop by 96% the first year after shutdown. Sulfur dioxide reduced an average of 90%. And you can see like right at the shutdown, kind of goes off a cliff here. But most importantly are the improved health outcomes. And thanks to Dr. Deborah Gentile, who is here today, for letting me use her slide. Dr. Gentile studied asthma in school children well before Shenango's shutdown was announced, and she continued her studies after Shenango's shutdown. Dr. Gentile found the students she was working with after Shenango's closure, there was a 25% reduction in physician-diagnosed asthma, a 42% reduction in uncontrolled asthma of those diagnosed, and a 59% reduction of children showing risk of asthma, but not yet diagnosed. Emergency room admissions from the year before the shutdown to the year after the shutdown showed a similar pattern. We saw over 25% decrease in cardiovascular emergency visits, heart attack and whatnot, 38% decrease in respiratory visits, 3.3-fold decrease in all asthma visits, and an over 5-fold decrease in emergency room visits from pediatric asthma from kids with asthma attacks. It's remarkable. Why did coke ovens produce such bad pollution? The job of a coke oven is to remove the most volatile 25% of coal, leaving a fuel called coke, which is used for making steel, although there are newer ways to make steel today that don't require coke. Coke ovens remove the quarter of the coal that's most volatile by heating it up to about 1900 degrees Fahrenheit and boiling the volatile parts of the coal off in gaseous form. It just vaporizes. But what happens to this worst 25% of the coal? All the volatiles which get boiled into gas form. It's a massive volume. When you think about the barges and trains full of coal going to a coke works, it's as if every fourth rail car or every fourth barge is vaporized and turned into gas. Shenango Coke Works tried, and today Clairton Coke Works tries to capture as much of these volatile gases as it can, but unfortunately through a number of pathways, a number of which we see in these cameras, the ovens emit much of the saturated and superheated gas into the atmosphere where it rapidly cools. Some of the metals and heavier molecules will start to condense into a tarry inhalable aerosol, the thing you saw in the video. The guy has to wipe off his screen every week. This is an example of that. The smaller molecules with lower boiling points stay in gaseous form. So those also get into the lungs. This includes benzene, toluene, xylenes, etc. They're both hitting our lungs, both the things that condense out into particulate and also the things that stay in gas form, and they both hit our lungs. This is an example. So this is Clairton Coke Works. Clairton Coke Works is about 10 times the size of Shenango. And this is on a better than usual day, and this is on a worse than usual day. And we realized when we were starting to look at the pollution footprint of Clairton, it's so large and affects so many people that we needed a better way to be recording many more smell events. And with that, I'll hand over to Paul.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, so my name is Paul Dillig. Among the many hats that I wear at the CreateLab, I'm technical lead on the SmellPGH project, as well as involved in many other air quality projects at our lab, BreatheCam being one of these. In this age of increased reliance on technology, we often forget that our bodies are actually highly trained monitors themselves. In fact, research shows that the human nose can detect over 1 trillion different odors. So if the air around you smells and you're experiencing a reaction to it, it's very likely that you're actually inhaling something harmful. So for those who aren't already familiar with Smell Pittsburgh, it launched in 2016 and is a crowdsourcing mobile app that allows users to easily and quickly record what they are smelling in real time. As Randy mentioned, Smell Pittsburgh was born out of the lessons from the Shenango Cokeworks community and the reports that we were gathering there. In terms of Smell Pittsburgh, as reports come in, users are able then to look at an interactive map of the region and go from potential feelings of isolated complaints to a shared experience of an entire neighborhood and city caring about the common goal of air quality. So with this in mind, when we were designing Smell Pittsburgh, we wanted the whole process to be easy to use, recorded in the moment, and transparent throughout the whole process. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot of the app. When you first open it, this is what you're presented with, which is a submission form. And there are a few sections of this form that you fill out. The first one is a rating of what you're experiencing and smelling. And it's from a scale from 1 to 5 in terms of severity. And you might wonder, who would even bother reporting a 1, that everything smells good? Well, actually, it is important too, and it helps determine when a smell event is dissipating or when an area of Pittsburgh or any region hasn't yet been affected by a smell event. So reporting 1s are actually a useful data source. Next, you fill out what the description of the smell is, if you're experiencing any symptoms, and any additional comments that you may have about that smell event. It's that simple. That's all there is to it. And yeah, up there you'll see a link to where to get it. It's available for Android and iOS. And once you fill everything out, those simple fields there, you click the green submit button at the bottom, and then it's sent and recorded in the Smell Pittsburgh system. Behind the scenes, your location is automatically recorded from the GPS of your mobile device, as well as the exact time that you're hitting submit. This ensures that what you're smelling is recorded in the moment and at the location that you've experienced it. As a relevant aside, in the creation of this form in this app, and to increase the utility of the reports that get submitted, we did work with Allegheny County Health Department. They helped provide suggestions for the fields that you see here, those little gray examples in there. They helped with that. We also worked with them at the onset to ensure that each report submitted was also forwarded to them. They would receive these as emails in real time, and they would manually transcribe them into their own reporting system. This was back in 2016, 2017. As time went on and app usership took off, this manual entry of reports became a clear bottleneck for ACHD, and they came back to us to work with their IT team on how we could better automate the importing of these in their system. Discussions eventually changed course a bit, and we were informed that changes to ACHD's reporting system would no longer have Smell Pittsburgh reports directly stored in it, but rather kept side by side. What makes these reports different? We don't truly know, but that was the verdict at the time. Fast forward today, ACHD now receives a daily file of all smell reports that come in for that day. And we're also working with them to produce daily aggregated geographic analysis of these reports, so as to better understand report clustering and to aid in their enforcement process. I also do want to mention that ACHD does not currently have a mechanism to reply directly to Smell Pittsburgh reports. So if you want a direct response, you need to use their GovQA reporting system. And for those who don't yet know what GovQA is, that will come up more so in the rest of this town hall. Anyway, back to the app. So once you submit a report, you are presented with an interactive map of the Pittsburgh region. And here is where the power of transparency and collective reporting really comes into play. You can immediately see in real time who else in Pittsburgh is submitting and reporting similar experiences as you. Each of these triangles you see on there represents one of these reports, and the color is based on the severity that was selected when you were submitting. You can click on any of these reports and see what the description was, what time it happened, and any symptoms that were listed. In this example from December, it wasn't a particular day specifically that I pulled, but it was just an example. there were 56 reports that were made on this day, and 51 of these were unique users. Some days have submissions that are 2 to 3 times this, and some days have less. And each color down here in the app, this is how you actually choose different days. The darker the color corresponds to the more reports that have occurred for that day. And it becomes quite clear when you go through them that these are real people with real symptoms submitting these. So the notion that it's a potential handful of a few people doesn't truly hold. And as you click on each of these, you can see some of these descriptions. And you'll see, and I can read some of these, and these are just a small subset of this day. You know, in this example here, up in Squirrel Hill, someone reported headaches, irritated eyes, burning sensations, kept me up all night. Here in Glassport, sulfuric smell, can't breathe. Here over in Jefferson Hills and Pleasant Hills, difficulty breathing, headaches, industrial smells. So industrial smells are often, 70% plus of the type of descriptions that are done through Smell Pittsburgh. Also on this map, you see little circles here, and those circles represent county monitors tracking PM 2.5. And when you're also looking at that in real time, you can see wind direction that shows you where wind is blowing. All of this combining of data leads to a much better and fuller understanding of what is happening and where pollution is coming from. Another powerful feature of this map is that you can animate it and watch throughout the entire day when these reports have come in. So if you click the play button when you're inside the app, you can get an animated version of this. I have here a little video example of that. So it'll begin at midnight of that day and step through. You'll see first, reports usually come in around 6, 7 in the morning. So you'll see these triangles pop up, and you'll see the arrows pointing in wind direction, and you can pause at any time that you want. This is video, so I'm just going to play through it a bit. What's also interesting is that you might watch this wind arrow here, that it points here. It initially was a yellow sensor, and then it's pointing this direction, and you'll see some reports begin to pop up there over time. So it is very obvious that wind and wind plays a very large role in how pollution moves throughout this region. Usership of Smell Pittsburgh has increased over time. From its inception to the end of 2020, the number of reports have more than doubled. And we'll see here back in 2017, we had about a little over 8,000. End of 2020, we had over 18,000. And the number of Smell Pittsburgh users has also nearly doubled during that time span as well. So you'll see from 2017, we had about 1,300. End of 2020, about 2,500. To date, we have nearly 70,000 reports that have come through. Actually, sorry, I'll get that to in a second. But it's also important to see here that, and I had mentioned earlier, that we do have folks that are reporting that it smells just fine. Here's about 8% of people that have reported this. And again, reporting that it smells fine is a critical data point, and it helps to show when a region hasn't yet been affected or that smell event has dissipated for where they are. So we often will have people that will report that it smells, and then a few hours later, report that it does not. And that's an extremely useful data point. So yeah, so about 70,000 reports have been submitted since its inception. And these are, as I mentioned, these are real people doing real experiences through this. And it's, as I read some of those in the previous slide there, it's heartbreaking to read some of these descriptions. And so not only with the increase of usership we have, but we've also had an increase in the region and spread of where people were reporting from. And this helps us, and this increased coverage helps even more so. And so here we can see an increase in reporting going from, here we have 2017, again to 2018. We can see that we've gained a coverage throughout here in Wilkinsburg and Swissvale, and then also south of the Mon, we have in regions like Dormont, West Mifflin, Bethel Park, Clairton. And so this increased coverage is vital in helping better understand how pollution is traveling. And on that note, I'm going to turn over to Amy to talk about next steps in the endeavor of pollution tracking.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, my name is Amy Gotsagan. I am also a software developer at the CreateLab. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about another one of our tools, which is called PlumePGH. So like we saw in SmellPGH, on these bad pollution days, you can see patterns of like really huge swaths of area where sometimes hundreds of people are experiencing pollution around the same time. And you can often infer from the SmellPGH map that a large pollution plume is the source, but we wanted to provide further evidence and visualization to corroborate these residents' experiences of pollution. So here you can see a screenshot of what the website looks like. It shares certain UI elements with SmellPGH, so you can see this timeline on the bottom where the shade of the day represents how many smell reports there were. And then in the middle of the screen, you see sort of a visualization of pollution on that day. So in order to develop this, we turned to NOAA's HER model, which stands for the High Resolution Rapid Refresh Model. This was the first weather model to show things like wind speed, direction, humidity, mixing height, etc., at the very fine scale of 3-kilometer grid. And NOAA publishes this model in real time every hour. So this allowed us to take the 4 largest sulfur emitters in the county, Clairton Coke Works, Irvin, Edgar Thomson, and Cheswick Generating Station, and create daily visualizations of where pollution from these facilities would travel. Although the variation in plume path and density that you see from day to day on the site is only a function of the daily variations in the weather model, we do scale the emissions from each facility according to their Title V permits. So I'm going to show a recent example of what this looks like. So this is from January 22nd. You can see the 4 facilities I mentioned, each have a plume. And as this plume travels over the city, you see all of these smell reports crop up. And so we think that this visual of so many smell reports is pretty compelling on its own, but PlumePGH further substantiates the claim by showing that the wind was indeed blowing from the major polluters up towards the residents who reported pollution. So we included on the site something to further demonstrate that the pollution from these major facilities can in fact travel long distances across the county, and it's not just affecting people who are extremely nearby the facilities. So we turned to some monitoring data from the 2019 Clairton Fire. In January of 2019, there was a fire at Clairton Coke Works that caused a months-long emission event. We wanted to know, could we see evidence of this event at monitors that are stationed miles away from Clairton? So the map that you're looking at here shows a red pin for Clairton in the bottom right corner. You can see it's labeled, and then sort of in the middle left, you see a blue pin that's the South Fayette monitor. And then there's a line showing you that these 2 sites are over 16 miles apart from each other. And then the last thing I want you to note is that relative to the South Fayette monitor, Clairton is at a 106-degree angle about. So next I'm going to show you. So this is a graph showing SO2 measurements on the y-axis that are measured at the South Fayette monitor, and then it's broken down by the wind direction that those measurements came from. So there's a yellow line indicating that 106-degree angle that we talked about, that's the direction that Clairton is from the South Fayette monitor. And so this chart is for the several months before the pollution event around the fire. And you can see that like around this 106-degree angle, like around the direction that Clairton is in, you can see that there's like somewhat elevated SO2 readings. But then when you look at the months during the fire, you see that there's this huge increase in some of the SO2 measurements coming from the direction of Clairton, more than double sometimes the measurements. And then finally, when you look at the months after the pollution controls were fixed at the facility, you can see that it goes back down. So altogether, this is the 3 before, during, and after. And so this kind of like very simple analysis that we did using publicly available monitoring data shows that pollution can indeed carry very far across the county, in this case, more than 16 miles, further verifying residents' collective experiences of these large pollution events. And so speaking of monitoring data, in addition to allowing you to compare modeled pollution based on weather with real smell reports, PlumePittsburgh also gives you the option to add several different monitoring networks over top of the visualization. In the legend, kind of in the right top corner of the site, you have this drop down, which allows you to add in TVOC monitors, ACHD, PM 2.5 monitors, SO2 monitors. So I'm going to hand it over to Anna to talk more about this feature.
Thanks, Amy. I'm Anna Hoffman, Director of Air Quality Engagement at the CreateLab. And to frame this feature of the PlumePittsburgh site, I want to show an example that Amy touched on using both SmellPittsburgh and PlumePittsburgh. This past Saturday, January 22nd, 2022, was a day with widespread smells throughout the county. Here's what some people submitted. Severe sustained headaches that won't go away with 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, burning throat. Here's another one. I'm pregnant. Is this good for the baby? Headache, sore throat, ACHD, do something. There were 74 odor complaints submitted to ACHD through SmellPittsburgh, 3 of which were from the zip code 15025, Clairton, between the hours of 4:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. In the additional comments section of the odor submission form, these people wrote, "Woke me out of my sleep at 5 a.m. This is criminal." And another within an hour said, "We heard multiple loud sounds that sounded like explosions all evening. Shut them down or make them comply." We hope these tools can continue to support advocacy for better health outcomes across our region. We have learned from watching the days change on SmellPittsburgh and PlumePittsburgh that there are good days and bad days. We recognize the difference in the severity of industrial pollution's impact on people who either sleep soundly through the night or are woken up by a smell that chokes. The difference in people's day when they have energy and can go to work or school versus the times when the pace seems to slow and thoughts aren't as clear and asthma or other conditions flare. These days are predictable, like the weather. We have plenty of evidence here of what conditions look like on a good and bad day. And people could use a warning to remember to bring their inhaler or bring our kids inside to play. Our region, with its legacy of pollution, has seen far too slow and ineffective progress. So we, the public, have had to design our own channels to become truly informed about the conditions we are living in and get the information we need. We've seen SmellPittsburgh and community-owned monitoring networks like Purple Air to be the first informants for the public that this event that they are no stranger to is happening again. Many of us have made changes to our daily lives based on the information these publicly accessible tools provide. Working with the organizers of this event, we were able to learn about some new Purple Air Monitor sites that have been installed by residents concerned with how their neighborhood fits in with regional trends on these good and bad days. 4 new Purple Airs popped into the PlumePGH visualization in Hazelwood on January 20th, right before this really bad air quality day on Saturday the 22nd. Any purple air that is set to outdoor publicly viewable location status will end up on this map under the all PM 2.5 monitors option in the drop-down menu. So before I play the visualization, let me load that monitoring network into the map. So I go to all PM 2.5 monitors, and you'll see many purple airs start to load. Along with RAMP PM 2.5 data and ACHD PM 2.5 data. So see this cluster here? These are the new Hazelwood monitors. So as I hit play, you can see the monitors near Clairton Cokeworks start to change. At the same time, let me go back to like 4-ish. At the same time that PM 2.5 levels from the ACHD monitors in the SmellPGH app were turning red. And this is about 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Then as the plume moves across the region, the smell reports start to spread, through the morning from about 7:30 a.m. on. Clearly, as the plume moves off, which you'll see here soon, the monitors return to healthy green, and there are pops of localized spikes, but that's not what we all were experiencing. This was clearly a regional pollution event that started at the Cokeworks with residents in Clairton knowing something was coming from the early morning hours, and maybe even based on activity they heard at the site throughout the night. And then it moves across Allegheny County, affecting every neighborhood in the wind's path. There is not enough collaboration or accessibility of government information offered to people with concerns. We haven't seen government monitoring networks provide the kind of context people need to prepare. So thank you to everyone who contributes to these collective hubs of information that we might use to inform ourselves about what's really going on here. And thanks for the opportunity to share our work with you all here today. Please reach out to us with any questions or just to chat about these tools and ideas. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anna. So this is Mark Dixon again, and I'm going to play the video that as soon as I just make a couple adjustments here. Good, I'm going to play the video that compares the GovQA system developed by the Allegheny County Health Department with the SmellPGH app. And I'm going to talk you through it a little bit. There's music, but I'm going to also do a little bit of narration so that you understand kind of what's going on. And if you have any questions about the video, I'm happy to take those in the public comments and discussion session afterwards, or I can address them in the chat after the video plays. Here we go. Okay, so we have smell complaints submit off, GovQA versus SmellPGH app. Which system is faster, simpler, easier? We will find out in 3, 2, 1. And here you see a list of all the features that are addressed by these systems. We pull up the SmellPGH app, and quickly, all of a sudden, the name, address, date, time, location, email, phone, and rating are input. We added the rating very quickly because it's very easy to do in the SmellPGH app. But it stores your other information automatically in the app. So once you use it once, it's already there. So we're already filling out the smell and then the symptoms information in SmellPGH and also additional notes. Meanwhile, on the left, we still haven't yet found the link to submit an air quality complaint. Oh, there's the link on the left. We're going there. Meanwhile, the Smell Pittsburgh app is complete with their smell submission at 36 seconds. We're still getting to the section of the health department website where we can submit an air quality complaint. So we're clicking on the button to request service file complaint, and we see there's all different options here. I increased the speed to double time, so this is now playing twice the speed. We go to air quality then, and then we have to enter our username and password, which I have automatically set for mine. We have to wait for it to load. Sometimes it loads faster, sometimes slow. And it automatically keeps your name, email, phone information, but you have to re-enter your address information. And then it asks for an air quality complaint type, and so it's unclear what to put, but we put an odor complaint. Then they don't have multiple select for the describe the odor, so you have to choose between different options: rotten egg, metallic, sulfur, diesel, chemical smell. But very often these are they're multiple of those smells at the same time. So now we're entering a little additional information. You have to enter the date and the time. Smell Pittsburgh does that automatically for you. Where were you? You have to tell it where it was located, but Smell Pittsburgh does that automatically. Did you observe smoke? So they don't ask for symptom information, but I give it to them anyways, because you can put it there. So the Smell Pittsburgh app takes 36 seconds, and the Allegheny County GovQA website takes about, for this kind of approach, 2 minutes and 56 seconds. I included some dithering time in the animation, just to give you the sense that even for me, when I'm trying to submit a complaint through the health department's app or their website, I still have to go hunting for the link, and sometimes it's unclear to me, if I haven't submitted for a while, where to actually go get that information. So I felt that sort of dithering time was a fairly natural kind of timing for that. You may be able to submit it faster or slower, but that just gives you a sense of an average experience for submitting between both apps. And okay, now I think that's all for the video. Feel free to drop in comments about that in the chat if you'd like, or about prepare your questions for CreateLab. They'll be able to take questions after all this is completed later on in this event. Now I think if I could introduce Howard again. Howard, and then you can introduce the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And I would only say that personally, I have used that GovAQ website. I have been unable to figure out how to make that really functional using my smartphone. So you got to go home, you got to get on your laptop, and it's not a user-friendly device. And then the other question is, why? What could we do to make the whole system better? Meantime, we're going to hear briefly from a resident of Hazelwood, who's just going to share her view. Andrea Coleman Betts, a longtime resident, I think multi-generational resident, and then we're going to get into the next steps in terms of discussion. So, Andrea.
Hello, all. I'm Andrea Coleman Betts, a resident from Hazelwood, which is in Pittsburgh, PA. And I grew up in the Glenwood area, right around the corner of the Glenwood Bridge, which is also in Pittsburgh, PA. And I have lived in 4 rental properties, one which was literally condemned by the Allegheny County Health Department in Hazelwood, and have lived there for over 60 years. I do remember the B&O Railroad up and running. It would shake our home on Renova Street, where I lived, and then with noise and pollution as zipped through the community. And I had my children in the 1970s, and then as an adult relocated to the opposite end of Hazelwood on Monongahela Street, which was run parallel to 2nd Avenue in the business district, and the J&L Steel Mill. I can remember when I would take them out in the community for walks, and then returning home, their receiving blankets and clothing would be covered with soot. I lived in a townhouse that was brand new. I mean, spanking brand new, but there was no central air units or conditioning installed in the houses. My children that were then in primary school started having health conditions and learning difficulties. I started suffering myself from systemic lupus, and my oldest daughter had chronic asthma. And my oldest son developed some forms of depression and still having difficulties in school. And I had friends of mine who had lost their fathers in homes of what I heard was called black lung disease, which were many that worked in the mills and were on the avenue, Second Avenue, as I mentioned, and even just shopping and doing their errands and on a daily basis. And there was also a playground a block down the hill from Chatsworth where they would play, my children, and hear the pollution and say, "Mommy, it's loud over there." And then when they would come home from, which also was Second Avenue, a highly trafficked street in Hazelwood, and the smell was stifling. And my daughter ended up hospitalized almost on a weekly basis for her chronic asthma. In the Children's Hospital, which is also in Pittsburgh, PA. And at that time, the Allegheny County Children and Youth Services claimed that I was being negligent in her health and had her removed from my place of home and sent to my mother, who also lived still in Glenwood and Hazelwood, to live. And I was separated from my daughter until she became of age. And she still has a chronic asthma condition to this day. And I also was forced to resign from a job that I had filed as a child caregiver at the downtown YMCA. I was informed that I need to be at home and take care of my own children and their best interests. I needed to try to find employment to see if I could save money to afford better housing and an environment that was outside of Hazelwood. Now, I became employed, which was then called under the table, because I wasn't really allowed to work, receiving taxes or any kind of proof that I had been in employment instead of home taking care of my children. And the city of Pittsburgh at that time was rising with the youth in violence, and moving outside of Hazelwood was a high risk for having teenagers, and how safety and their safety would play a part in my life. I had to figure that out. I have found another job and then working up in the Squirrel Hill area, part of Pittsburgh, as a domestic worker. And notice that I was really living in Hazelwood with disparities and poverty. I worked for many years and realized that to be better, I had to do better. I went back to school and got my formal education, which led me to being a teacher for many years in the Pittsburgh public schools. I did end up buying my first house, but not outside of Hazelwood, but further away from Second Avenue, on which was called and still is Hazelwood Avenue. I am now 65 years old, retired on disability and physically disabled, living now on Second Avenue, which is still heavily trafficked. The mills have now closed and are now, to note, the new Hazelwood Green. I purchased another house back on Second Avenue, and my children are now adults living outside of Hazelwood. And I have two more children that have lived in Pittsburgh, and now one has left Pittsburgh altogether and lives in another state. And then my daughter, as I mentioned, still suffers from asthma, and my son was granted his wings in 2017. I have also two more children, and they're still living on their own. I never left Hazelwood, but due to air quality, it has affected my lupus, and I've always kept my home with the windows tightly sealed and with central air conditioning on all of the time, even in the winter sometimes. And I also had portable air purifiers operating in my home, which increased my Duque light bills. I love my porches, but I will not sit on them for vehicle pollution still on 2nd Avenue, which I mentioned is a kind of mainstream to traffic through the Hazel Business District and downtown Pittsburgh. My health has been declining, but at my age, what else could I do? I mean, what should I do now? And Hazelwood Initiative offered me an opportunity to have a purple air monitoring device installed on my home in Hazelwood in January 2022. As of today, I hold on to my hope in Hazelwood and my being greener and environmentally safe and in being healthy for residents, businesses, and their families. I'm wishing upon a star as I continue to combat these disparities. And again, I'd like to say, in conclusion, I now have my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and an elderly mother who also lives in Hazelwood, which is our home. And I want to, and I need to breathe. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for your honest report. And hopefully we can figure out a way to work together with you and the residents in Hazelwood. We played some small role in getting that purple monitor to the community and a few others, and we're working on trying to accelerate that and see ways in which we can really utilize the power of this collective to make a difference. So thank you very much. Now, Mark, you want to put on that little video and we'll get on to teeing up the discussion piece of the town hall.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a little prelude video for the town hall discussion. And I also want to highlight that we have developed a little bit of a little survey that we'd love it if you were willing to take it. If you had some issue in your neighborhood that you'd like us to take up at the upcoming town hall events, you can let us know through this little survey that I'm going to put in the chat. It's bit.ly/AQ Town Hall Survey. And I put the link in the chat, and I'll start the video here momentarily. Thanks, Howard. And thank you, Andrea, too, for telling your story. We appreciate it very much.
The Allegheny County Health Department has failed to protect the people of Allegheny County time and time again.
We are one of the dirtiest communities in the country.
Asthma, just like air pollution, is an issue with disparities. African Americans are 5 times more likely to go to the emergency room for asthma, and they're actually 3 times more likely to die of asthma.
Imagine living with the smoke, soot, rotten egg smell, burnt and industrial smells for decades, knowing that it impacts you, your family, your children, your parents, your grandparents, and your great-grandparents. Now, take another moment to imagine what it's like to keep your windows closed and not go outside, but the smells still permeate your house and the odors are so strong that you can taste them.
Most of the people in the Mon Valley have gotten so used to smelling this crap that they don't even realize they're smelling it. They don't realize what is making them sick. They don't realize how many people are dying.
My doctor told me, pack up and move out of Clairton. I would get out of Clairton. Don't even stay here. It's dangerous for you.
They can either clean Clairtonville up or shut it down. That's the only 2 choices they have, I believe. They're not doing too good at cleaning it up.
I don't think there's enough focus on economic growth that we won't see if the air is not cleaned up. Buildings will be shuttered, projects that are planned will be canceled, and I'm thinking about past the pandemic. It's air quality that is most likely to stop our growth and our recovery.
I ask myself regularly, can we safely grow old here and raise our son? I'm not certain of that answer now, but I do believe that a groundswell of resident action will be our key to positive change.
We are currently requesting an investigation by Attorney General Josh Shapiro into the Allegheny County Health Department's regulatory failings that have left countless residents vulnerable and exposed to these environmental violations and illegal pollution.
I'm tired of repeating my lived experiences over and over. I'm tired of witnessing the death of loved ones and neighbors. I don't want my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be telling this same story. I pray there will come a day that this problem of daily air pollution no longer plagues the great city of Clairton and the Mon Valley.
We all deserve power without pollution and energy without injustice.
Okay. So if you haven't submitted that survey, you're more than welcome to. We'd love to hear from you if you have an issue that you'd like taken up at the future town halls from your community. And now open discussion time, Howard.
Yeah, now it's your chance to make a future highlights reel. So here we are. Jump in.
Can I just jump in now?
Sure.
Okay, this is a question directed to the CreateLab people. First of all, I wanted to ask if what response people get when they submit a smell report to you, to Smell Pittsburgh, besides the great video and charts that they get to see. Do they get any other kind of response? And do you have any power to do anything in response to the smell reports, like sending out an inspector? And then the other question is, well, what does ACHD do when they get a report? Do they respond to the people sending the reports? What do the people know? And is there an inspector that's sent out by them?
Thank you, Sharon.
We should put the camera.
Does somebody from CreateLab want to answer that?
Thank you, Sharon. CreateLab does not have power to send an inspector that could issue a malodor enforcement action. We feel that there's, like you said, there's a lot of benefit that can come from the response that we can give, which is transparent data about how other people that are experiencing the same smell event. The Allegheny County Health Department has said on different occasions that when they receive an odor complaint through their GovQA system, they have to receive 3 complaints within an hour in a specific geographic area to be able to send an inspector. But I've also heard that sometimes an inspector isn't available, even in that case. We also don't know how many GovQA complaints are submitted on any of these given bad air quality days. So it's really hard to hold them accountable to following up on that serious health concern.
Okay, thanks. We have a few other people that have raised their hands. So Barbara Tallarico.
Thank you, Howard. I think I heard earlier in the presentation that at one point the data was merged. The Smell Pittsburgh data was merged with what the county health department was receiving, but the amount of, or the volume of reports coming through Smell became, unsustainable in terms of manual input into the ACHD system. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct. Yeah, early on, they were manually transcribing the reports that were coming in from Smell Pittsburgh into their system. Obviously, that didn't, that didn't scale well for them. But I did mention also that even though we were working with them for a way to automate getting that into their system, they were changing their whole backend structure, and presumably that might have been their process towards GovQA. I don't know for certain there, but whatever their new process ended up being, they were no longer planning to merge them in the same backend, and we're going to keep them separate. Why that's the case, I don't fully know the decisions around that, but that's what they were doing.
Just thank you, Paul. It just seems like a tremendous waste of important information, timely information. And I think if there's something that, one of the things that can come out of this town hall is more pressure on the county health department to incorporate this information from SmellPittsburgh. It's clearly useful and much more timely than what they're getting. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And it certainly gives us a future agenda here to be able to figure out how to, perhaps invite the county health department to one of these town halls and see how they defend that action. So next we have Jermaine Patterson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jermaine Patterson, Clairton resident. So thank you, CreateLab, for the work that you do. I mean, there's so much in this. One of the things I want to go back to, something that Paul said, is that the nose knows before the body does. And I find that to be true in my experience, and I'm sure a lot of residents do as well. I just want to bring up something that has recently happened, and that's the limitations on the coke oven regulations that the health department obviously dropped the ball on. And so as a resident, I'm wondering what we can do, what CreateLab can do. I mean, it's clear that Allegheny County Health Department is only working with you guys just a little bit, maybe to say I'm working with you. But I feel like they really should lock arms with you to make things happen. I guess I'd just like to know what's your opinion, what can happen, what can we do as residents to number one, to bring light to the coke oven regulations, because we can't let it just sit where it's at.
Can I just jump in for a second to at least share what I think I know about that, something I would be interested to hear clearly what the CreateLab has to say. The county had a settlement agreement with United States Steel over past violations that they worked on, I believe in 2019, I could be wrong about the exact date. It was put out for public comment maybe in 2020. There were a very significant number of organizations, individuals who offered public comment, feeling that the proposed regulations really missed the whole variety of issues that should have been addressed, and that potentially it looked as if that settlement agreement might tie the hands of the Allegheny County Health Department in terms of future efforts to modify it and do a better job of dealing with the emissions from Clairton Coke Works. The reality is that when those things get negotiated, the county's the county, U.S. Steel is U.S. Steel, and U.S. Steel can hire any attorney they want, and they obviously did. And they either outsmarted the county, or the county just somehow didn't do its job properly. And when they came up with this latest period that Jermaine is referencing, which was trying to further strengthen those coke oven regulations, U.S. Steel protested and said, no, you can't do that. If you look at our settlement agreement, you don't have the right to do that. That went to an arbitration process in the county, and the county's own process, it came up with the conclusion, U.S. Steel is right, you can't do that. So here we are, we're still suffering. They let that coke oven operate for 100 days. We saw some of those examples without pollution equipment at all, which you would have thought would have not only been a violation of previous agreements, but a dereliction of their own duty. So I don't know where that leaves us today, except to say there is a process going on between the county and U.S. Steel. It's not a public process. There's been commentary that's not been accepted from the past. They've wiped the slate clean on that, and they're going to now put out more regulations or another version of this for public comment. And that's not an acceptable procedure. So I don't know if there's anything more that that the CreateLab would want to add to that, but that is where we sit at the moment, unfortunately. Anybody from CreateLab?
Yeah, this is Randy. I don't know that we have a clear path that we understand to be able to help get a better outcome. I think we would be very eager to put lots of effort into it, but I think we may need some help trying to best understand how to do that.
Well, we certainly have a perfect follow-up item here, and the voices of this group, and we had almost 70 people on this call at one point, and others who've been on previous calls, and organizations that are part of the Breathe Project certainly have the platform to begin to really make some noise about this. So now we have two more people who have their hands raised. Sinan Dogan. Sinan?
Hi, thank you very much for presentations, and particularly Andrea for the story. I just want to add something as a proposal, maybe. One thing that I noticed in SmellPGH and other sources that folks community report their grievances is that how emotionally and socially this is taking a toll. And I've been, I'm UC Canada Pitt. I've been I started working in Clairton and Braddock about the connections between mental health and environmental injustices. And I want to actually hear more. One report from yesterday, for example, from Squirrel Hill mentioned headache, irritated eyes, irritated nose, and a building theory. We need to talk about frustration. We need to talk about fury. We need to talk about community violence that we are seeing, murders every day, shootings every day in our neighborhoods. And journalists are quick to say this is senseless violence, as if people are randomly shooting each other. But we know that it is mental health. We know that environmental pollution is affecting it. But we need to hear more, collect more testimonies, and I am working this year and next year on that. I had a chance to talk to Melanie about it. I will reach out to you, Melanie, again. Thank you for that again. I would love to, I'll drop my contact info in the following town halls. I would love to talk about that more too, to have conversation, what kind of mental health, emotional well-being issues that you've been dealing with in relation to environmental health, what kind of learning issues that children are experiencing, what kind of issues that you're experiencing in your professional life because you cannot focus on things. If we gather these together in a systematic way, which is my job, they cannot ignore this. And we need to talk about as many things as possible. We've been talking about asthma, cancer. We need to add mental health to this conversation as well, to just show that violence in our communities, underperformance of children in schools are not irrelevant. So thank you for that, and thank you CreateLab again for this opportunity. I will drop my email and phone number in the chat.
Yeah, please, and thank you for your comment, and there's plenty to follow up on that. You mentioned environmental justice communities, and one of the things that we believe that we are able to do is to amplify those voices, so the people who live in those communities who don't necessarily have access to either the technology or the platform to do so. So anything we can do to further that, we would certainly be interested in doing. And you're right, there are all kinds of implications of air pollution. Health goes more than just physical health. Melanie Mead, you had your hand up.
Thank you all. I'm always encouraged by being here. This is very emotional for me, and I told my story so many times that I don't want to take up your time. But for those of you who know me, you must realize that it has been emotionally challenging for me to stay the course. And I am able to stay the course because of the science and the data that you all show me. But when I entered, I was running late, and I came in just as Mark was putting up the visual. And it brings on so much emotion. I'm holding back tears. And when I hear Jermaine speak, I'm holding back tears. And when I hear others speak about the corruption and ineffectiveness of the ACHD. So I realize that the data collection is very important, but I just hope that you all realize the people in these environmental justice communities are dealing with a lot of injustice socially, and to even get them to wrap their mind around it, we need to almost have a psychiatrist or therapist near. We have a large number of youth dying of overdoses, as Sinan mentioned, and thank you for hearing me, Sinan. We have gun violence. That night that he mentioned the report, that Mark mentioned the report, I wasn't sure whether it was gunshots or whether it was the mill, because there were gunshots earlier that night. So when I look at Mr. Art and Jermaine here, and I don't see too many more Clairton people, then I don't feel like we're doing it right. And I want to ask, what can be done? And why aren't we getting more access to them? So those are the things that come about. I believe wholeheartedly in data collection and monitoring, but I also believe the people that need to do the monitoring the most have the least time, the least accessibility to it, and the least power to make an effective action. And that's what I just want us to keep in mind as we're developing it. And I just thank you all. And it's nice to see all of your faces. Hugs.
Well, powerful statement, Melanie. And I would just say two things. It's what got me involved in this type of advocacy in the first place, which is all the data in the world doesn't get you anywhere if you can't use that data to fuel the kind of activism that's necessary to make that change. And there's no better voices to do that than the people that are most affected. And you and now our next speaker will be Mr. Art Thomas, who certainly expresses those views. And we will work diligently with Jermaine and others, yourselves in the community, and see how we can do a better job of getting that input and that access to those voices. So Art?
Hello, Art Thomas, citizen of Clairton for over 70 years. During that period of time, I've known a few people get shot, few people overdose. I don't personally know anyone that's died of COVID, but asthma isn't the only thing that Clairton Mill causes. Clairton Mill causes cardiac conditions, nerve conditions, sarcoidosis, cancers of all sorts and kinds. And I know a whole bunch of people that have died from these type of ailments that are caused by Clairton Mill. And nothing's been done to stop Clairton Mill from doing it. As far as I'm concerned, Clairton Mill just thumbed their nose at Clairton. US still just thumbed their nose at Clairton. When they said they weren't going to use $3 million to repair the mill and then go to Arizona somewhere, and it's been, what is it, $3 billion rather, dollars to build electric arc furnace. And I work for US Steel. US Steel is supposed to be in business, not for short-term profit, but for setting long-term goals. If this was really the truth, you would hear about U.S. Steel looking into solar-powered arc furnaces and stuff like this that will reduce our footprint on this earth. But they're not doing anything that I see towards that. And they should be. There's other companies that are doing this. If you go Google right now, solar-powered arc furnaces, you'll find other companies that are doing this. And like I say, if U.S. Steel builds one for $9 million or whatever it is, $1 billion, it'll probably be coal-fired. Thank you. That's about all I have to say. But if you can't clean it up, shut it down. My goodness. My wife suffers from sarcoidosis. That's a neural disease that's caused from breathing coal byproducts directly. This is ridiculous. They can't get rid of this thing. And the Allegheny County Health Department was not giving us any help. I had one health department person tells me that because I was telling her, like, when I was on safety for U.S. Steel for a while, for the union. And when they had spilled oil on the river, they got a sheen on the river, I knew I was going to surf and turf that day because I got to eat in the executive office, lounge, lunchroom, whatever you want to call it. And I'd be eating with the Coast Guard and management and stuff like that, taking notes on why the oil sheen went on the river. Today, they have monitors down Clairton Mill that have employees running in front of them, letting them know that the monitors are coming. And I had a person from the health department tell me this. I'm done. I'm just done with it. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you, Art. Thank you. I would say about U.S. Steel, if you want to, anybody on this call want to have an interesting experience, get on the U.S. Steel website, their own website, and they don't mention the Mountain Valley Works at all. They mention Arkansas, that's where they put $4.5 billion. They mention Alabama, where they put another $500 million. Mon Valley, where they committed to $1.5 billion to upgrade their operations, they stiffed us. They canceled that. So it's obvious that the answer for us is, Art's right, shut it down. That place cannot be made to be better. They aren't willing to invest the money in it. And that's what we're dealing with. And we're dealing with a power structure in our town that doesn't seem to have the will to push on that company. And that's part of what I think we have to focus on. Mark, you had your hand up, and then I think Melanie again, and then that looks like it.
Yeah, I'm happy to let Melanie go again. I'm going to bubble up some comments from the chat and a few other things. So Melanie, please go ahead.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much. What you just mentioned about shutting down, see, that's something that I think when we are monitoring, if we could create like cohorts of youth and elderly to monitor, then we can get the youth to understand they need to prepare for jobs to clean up. And what do they want? Get them to visualize what they want to see so that we can change the momentum. We're not shutting them down today, but we are planning for it. And so these youth need to be educated on green jobs, green industry. How can we make this into an eco-industrial area? We need to be at the forefront because we have suffered the most and we have gained the least. The big thing in Clairton is our property, the property's going for little to nothing. Outsiders are buying this property who don't care and don't know. So we need, the way that we can get it shut down for me is how do we create a right to know for land, because your house value is depreciating whether you like it or not. Don't blame me for giving the people the right to know. You're putting your health in harm's way by moving here, and stop allowing the city to sell our land for nothing. It just doesn't make sense. We really have to get on top of that. And I know that the data can be used, like you said, Howard, to share that storytelling. I'm just not sure as how to present it. But I do think if we were to give them the data and the land value and their actual ability to change this, we can maybe start buying land and creating business. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the vision for the future that we need to have. And there is the capacity in this region to be a part of the solution, not continuing to be the source of the problem. And that's part of the mission we have to just continue to take on. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Howard. I just wanted to call out a few of the comments in the chat. Sinan mentioned, thank you, Andrea, for the very powerful statement after she spoke. Also, Carol Hoover, thank you, Andrea. I'm so glad you shared your experience with us today. Also, want to remind people to go to the AQ Town Hall survey that we have posted in the chat. And if Christine or Howard, you could post that again, that would be great. There was another comment Tiffany Talton mentioned. I want to give a shout out to Abhinesh Viswanathan of Pit Sensing for first approaching us last year with his idea to provide air quality monitors for our community. Those are the first set of monitors that we installed last week. We'll soon install more monitors to make sure the neighborhood is adequately covered, thanks to the gift from this group here today. So that's great connectivity there. And then Thaddeus Popovich mentioned, Andrea, you are a great storyteller. Let's see, there were a few others, some other encouragements to others here. Thanks to the CreateLab. And I wanted to highlight also, Tiffany, I think Andrea mentioned something. She said, I mentioned in my story, the Allegheny County Health Department on their interventions on me as an individual resident in breaking up my family, but yet as a public health agency for families cannot intervene on today's issues for our being our lives. So yeah, there's these strange constraints happening with the health department about what they can and can't intervene with, or what they choose to intervene with. Tiffany responds to that. Indeed, Ms. Andrea spoke eloquently about the depression her family suffered, and mental health is one of the prime concerns voiced in the Hazelwood Neighborhood Plan. So those are some really, really powerful comments. I just wanted to make sure that they were elevated here into the conversation. There are several more comments in the chat. I encourage you to read through the chat if you haven't yet. I also wanted to reflect two quick reflections of my own. One is that the language that so often comes to mind as I hear the stories that we shared today, and Melanie, as you kind of double down on the emotionalness of all of this, the language of slow violence really is sort of language that moves me, that there is a violence occurring, but because it occurs so slowly in the form of slow moving, wafting pollution, at least as one form of that it's difficult to pinpoint it as something that needs to be so urgently addressed, but I think it is violence nonetheless. And if we're really concerned about health and safety in our communities, that we have to address both the swift and the slow violence that occurs. The other is that I have heard, I think from, and others on the call can perhaps correct me, but I believe that the health department may have discounted the they've discounted Smell Pittsburgh app by saying, sometimes they'll do a roll up of, they might mention in a town hall, in a health department board meeting that there were X number of Smell Pittsburgh reports, but they'll discount them by saying, well, but that includes all levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, or all levels, and we don't know how many of them are said it's good air versus not good air. And the absurd thing is that this is an institution with epidemiologists and professional people who can address, manage data on the fly, professionally, with degrees and deep knowledge of how to manage data. And during that same board meeting, that one time that I heard this comment from, I believe it was Jim Kelly at the time, I was able to download the data from the Smell Pittsburgh website and distill from the open data on the website which comments or which complaints were level 1 and which comments were level 2 through 5, because it's delineated. Unlike on the Gov AQ site, I was able to quickly download the open data and discern which were the worst, which were the comments that indicated problems during that same event, and then reported it back to the health department in real time. And so for them to discount the Smell Pittsburgh app through sort of like, I feel like dispassionate or just sort of off the cuff remarks about, well, we can't know for certain this or that, I think it's completely ingenuous and just deeply disappointing that they would discount the Smell Pittsburgh app in that way. The other thing I wanted to highlight was, and again, this is where I get into the ACAN. I think it was ACAN, but it may have been another organization's experience that the health department discounted the breathe cam information because in part it was perhaps run at high speed, because they speed up the animation of the pollution. It's one way to visualize the slow violence happening at a speed that you can see with your eyes. It's very difficult to see the plumes with your eyes because they move so slowly. You might not be able to know that a certain pollution is actually smoke or steam or what, but if you speed it up, it becomes instantly apparent to anybody who's sort of slightly used to or even trained to look at that information to know what kind of pollution it is and what volume it is and how powerful it might be to the community surrounding it. These things become intuitive to, I think, people like ACAN and to people like me who are looking at these smell pit or the CreateLab. The CreateLab breathe cams very regularly. We see, oh, that's a very large plume. That's a very mild plume. This is smoke. This is steam. These things become apparent to us. But I think it's really a disappointment for that kind of I would call it hyper useful information to be discounted by the health department. It's actually even more useful than actually real-time plume visuals or looking at it with your eyeballs, because it becomes that much more clear whether you're looking at steam or smoke when you're looking at it at an accelerated pace. So just a couple of little comments here that I'm regularly disappointed by the discounting of these community tools by the health department. But over time, it does seem that the health department picks up on the logic of our commentary as they have started to investigate more low-cost monitoring lately. But it took them years of hearing us testify about, why aren't you paying attention to this? Why aren't you paying attention to that? After some years, it may come into their realm of attention, but it takes years. And the more powerfully we pull together at events like this, we may be able to move those years into months or even weeks. So thanks, Howard. And thanks everybody for your comments.
Thank you. I would just conclude by saying the following. I really appreciate everybody who shows up and stays and offers their opinions. We live in a county that at the moment somehow figured out how to spend $1.5 billion to build a new airport. I'll leave us with that message. We have an underfunded health department and we could spend $1.5 billion on something we didn't even need. And we need the county health department. We need it to do its job. And hopefully we can be a little bit of an engine to encourage that. So thanks all, and take away the conclusion, Mark.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, thanks everybody very much. Thank you, Howard. Thank you to all of our speakers, to the CreateLab, to Andrea, and everybody who who shared a comment here at the end in the open discussion time. Melanie, I see your hand is still raised. Do you have any? Okay, no more comments. Okay, great. Just wanted to double check. Thank you, Melanie. I'm going to share the link again for this survey. If you have an issue in your community that you would like addressed at a future town hall, or you'd like the town hall to kind of focus in on your area, please share that information with us in the survey, or by all means reach out to us in any way that you can find, including I'll put my email in here. If you have questions or you're curious about something, you can write to me, mark@lens.blue, and we will take your concerns in and process them in future town hall development. I'm going to share now also the sponsors that we have. These are basically the organizations, entities, groups that have been in collaboration with this really truly grassroots effort to bring together repeatedly, month after month, voices around this important issue. In many ways, we're finding people who have been at this for a while, and we're connecting them with people who maybe are just freshly learning about it, or who are just finding the time to address it in their own life. And we want to just keep those connections going, pulling us all together into a solid movement. And I think that's all. There's a website for the town hall group at swpaths.org. That's swpaths.org. There is also a petition there that you can explore, also that we've addressed in previous town halls.